Hello guys and welcome back to a brand new video. Today is a special day. I know I say that every time, but today is actually a special one. Now, before I reveal what we're gonna do today, I would just like to ask you to watch through to at least like 2 minutes into the video, not because of my watch time, just so that you could understand everything. I don't want people to leave early not understanding what's gonna happen today, because today is a special day. Trust me on this one. Now, can I get a drum roll please? Because today marks the first day and the beginning to an episode called The Complete Beginner's Guide to Editing. You see, when I got into editing, it was extremely hard for me to learn it, because a lot of people weren't really understanding what they could explain and how could they explain it. However, after going through hell and mud and bippity boppity, I now have 3 years of experience. Yup, it happened pretty much that quickly. You see, my entire objective here is just to combine my entire 3 years of experience into this series made up of around 8 episodes. Now, I will reveal what each episode is gonna do, but today marks the beginning of it. And today we're gonna start with purely the basics. And before we get into it, I just want to say that my DMs are always open for any questions that you guys have, or anything that you don't understand. Make sure to DM me right there and I'll quickly answer. Hope I could help you in any way. But for now, I can guarantee you that if you watch through all of these episodes, you're gonna know a lot about editing. But enough further ado, let's get into the video. So right now on the screen, you should be seeing all the episodes and what their entire purpose is. And as you could see, today's episode is everything before editing and the basic UI. Now, this might not be very exciting, but this is extremely helpful, because I'm gonna give you a lot of tips and tricks that a lot of people don't realize and know until they're really deep into editing. So I would suggest you sit back and just enjoy this video and take in as much information as you possibly could. So the way this is gonna go is I'm gonna be talking you through everything that you should know before editing, just to make sure that you're all ready. And then I'm just gonna give you a couple tips and tricks, and then after all I'm just gonna give you the basic UI. And after all that, I'm gonna show you around Davinci and what the different tools are for and what you could use right now, right today. Now, before we start getting into the basics, I know this is probably weird because I'm talking about something before talking about the thing that we're gonna talk about before starting editing and the basic UIs. But hear me out. I just want to tell you that you gotta remember that editing is not about how much you know, but instead it's actually about how much experience you've got in it. Now, this might sound weird, but you'll understand it when you do. You see, editing is not about just what you could see. It's a lot about the details and the tiny specific things that go through an experienced editor's mind to create the highest quality or the best content that they could possibly do. It might not be noticeable now, but as soon as you get deep into editing, you'll actually start understanding it very well. But that doesn't mean you just shouldn't learn anything and just get experience. And as a matter of fact, that's just a longer way of doing it. By watching these episodes, you can actually get all the information, and then this is where my suggestion goes in. You should keep Davinci Resolve open in the background while watching these videos, and you should try and keep up with everything. That way you get some experience while learning everything. That is the perfect way of doing it. So for now, just always remember that editing, it's not about knowledge, it's a lot more about experience. But don't let that discourage you. You see, the fact that you even started at this age is already giving you an advantage over others who have started later. You will have more years of experience starting from now than others who have started later. But let me warn you, editing is extremely, and I stress this, it is extremely time consuming. It will take up most, if not all, of your free time and effort, and it'll take up more than any other thing that you have in your life. But you gotta be willing to work for it. I don't want to waste any more of your time, but I just gotta give a quick example. You see, the Forest Funny Moments video, and this is not a plug, that video took me so long to make. And there is one thing that I really learned from that. Being a good editor is all about just having the motivation to finish that project. Just keep on your mind, if you start something, finish it. Whether it's bad, good, shit, trash, it doesn't matter. You finish it, you learn something from it. You just leave it, you're giving up. And you're just giving yourself another chance to leave editing. So hear me out. Whenever it's hard, it's good.
That's what she said.
Now let's get into a couple tips before we start the basic UI. I just want to mention that being organized in editing is extremely important. Where you save your recordings, where you save your edits, all of that is extremely important. So make sure to keep organized. If you have things just sitting around in your downloads folder, things sitting around in your recordings folder, make sure to create folders, name them separately, and organize your shit. However, after that, we're going to talk about recording and gameplay or footage. If you're looking to do gaming videos, what you're going to use a lot is actually NVIDIA Shadowplay, which is a feature given by NVIDIA where you can record anything between 1 and 15 minutes that just happened. Now this doesn't make sense, but the way it works is it's gonna record everything that happens on your screen, but whenever you use their shortcut, which I think by default is Alt F10, I set it to Alt Z, it's just simpler. Whenever you use their shortcut, essentially it's gonna save everything that just happened in that specific time. So that's gonna be extremely useful. The settings that I would suggest you do, as you can see them on screen, is make sure the resolution is at 1080p. I know 720p might not seem like a difference, but trust me, in edits, it's gonna make a huge difference. Make sure to set that FPS to 60 so that just in case you ever want to get slow-mos, they don't look choppy, they just look really nice and smooth. And after that, the bitrate, I personally just set it to 35. I find it like a good balance between low-end and high-end. If you're recording on a camera and you're recording real-life content, then there's probably videos out there that show you how to get the best settings and the best performance out of your camera. I am not a camera expert, I have no experience using cameras for recording real-life content, so I'm the wrong person to ask here. Now before we get into project settings, I need to ask you a quick question. And no, I'm not about to ask you to subscribe. I want to ask you, what are you trying to create with these edits? Are you trying to create montages, or are you trying to create high-end videos? Because those are two different styles in editing. And yes, we'll get to talking about editing styles in the future video. But if you're gonna record montages, then you gotta watch through all the episodes. They understand all the tools that you could use, and then now my final episodes I'm actually gonna explain how you can make montages, sync in music with shots, and do really cool effects. I wouldn't suggest you skip over to there because there's a lot we need to cover, like I'm talking a shit ton. But if you're looking to create high-end videos, you won't need a lot of tools, you just need to focus a lot on quality. And depending on what the video's purpose is, for example, if it was YouTube, now this is off topic, but you really have to put your heart into it, because you gotta have kind of a character to attract people to make them watch that video. And I have none of that, so that's why I'm in the mud right now. But moving on, we're just gonna get straight into it. We're gonna talk about project settings. But before we do that, we need to talk about how you launch Davinci Resolve. So go ahead, and it's gonna take a while to load up because that's classic Davinci Resolve. But as soon as you're in the main screen, it's gonna ask you to either create a new project or go back to the one that you have already. Just double click on untitled project and it'll create a new one. Now that we're over here, I just want to quickly explain everything that you're gonna see on the screen. It might seem confusing, but just trust me. Take your cursor, go over down to here, and just click on this. Just trust me on this. Now, your Davinci Resolve might look different. It might have two screens instead of one. All you have to do is just press the inspector tab to change that. And I would suggest you do that. This mixer might not be here. There's a button over here that will open it up. You could just look it up if you don't kind of find it. It took me a while too, it's okay. But we're gonna talk about all of this right after we get into the project settings. Project settings are very important in Davinci Resolve. So go over to your files, click on that, and you can see new project, new timeline, choose current timeline, save project, etc. We're gonna go all the way over down to project settings, and we're gonna click on that, and it's gonna open up this weird thing. So let's just go over to master settings, and over here, as you can see, your timeline resolution should be 1920 by 1080 HD, because we recorded our clips in 1080p. So we want that to be the same. After that, feel free to change your timeline frame rate. I usually keep mine at 24, just so that the base videos that I upload here are usually in 60. You'll see what I mean. It'll ask you to change the frame rate, and you can just change it from here. I usually keep mine at 24 because I am too lazy to change it, actually. I have no idea why I keep it over here. Anyway, as you can see over here, there's playback frame rate. Now this is an important. Make sure to set it at 24, because playback in Davinci Resolve is going to take up a lot of resources on your PC. So this is a very important thing. Anyway, that's pretty much everything that we need to do. You can just go ahead and press save, and there we go. Let me run you through everything that's on your screen. Alright, this is gonna take a long time. Over here, as you can see, that's called the playback window. That's where you see all of the things that are happening to your clip, and we'll get to that in a second. On the right side over here is your inspector tab. That will show you details on the specific thing that you have selected. On the left is where you insert clips in the thing that's called the media pool. Essentially over here is where you put all of your clips, and then you drag them from here onto your timeline. This is the timeline, by the way, and use them. Speaking of the timeline, a timeline is the basic tool for any editing software. Well, not really a tool. This is just showing you your video in a form of a rectangle with their audio in a form of a rectangle. I'll get into that in a second, but all you need to know about this is you can resize it, you could create different layers, and layers that stack up on top of each other will show on top of each other. For example, if I had a layer over here and then I put another layer on top of it, that layer on top will show over the bottom one. The bottom one is still being rendered though, however the top one will show. So that's a mistake to look out. And over here on the left, as you can see, this is where all the effects, toolbox, the video transitions, titles, everything that you could think of is probably over here. And we're gonna talk about that later on, because this can be very useful as a beginner. However, for now, let's just get straight into the basics. As you can see over here, I'm opening up a folder, and I'm just gonna go ahead and take a random Apex Legends clip, and the way you take this into the media pool, you could either right click here and like import media, or you could just do what I do and just drag it on to there. It will ask you to change the frame rate if you have the frame rate less than the clips. So I recorded my clips at 60 and this frame rate is 24. I'll tell it to change because I want it to be 60 smooth. Anyway, now I'll close this, and as you can see, if you hover over it, you can actually play through the entire video. Now you might be asking, how do I edit this? How do I cut it? How do I do different things? Well, essentially what you have to do is you have to hold this and you have to just drag it onto your timeline. Because remember, we said that our timeline is what shows our video and our audio. Now I gotta quickly run you through these different things because these are gonna be way more useful than this. This is a bar that displays all of your tools that you could use. This tool over here is a cursor, so you can select different things and you can highlight different things. As you can see, we don't need these two. This tool over here is the blade tool. This is what you use to cut different things. For example, if I did this, I'll cut the clip right here. You won't notice anything because the clip is still attached. But let's say I cut it over here and then I decided to delete this. By selecting it, right clicking it and delete selected, you will see it'll be empty at the center. I'm just gonna Control Z to undo it, and we'll talk about shortcuts in a minute, but these are gonna be very important. Now I just want to talk about these two things right here. First of all, if you're doing general stuff, make sure to tick linked selection on. Essentially what this does is whenever you select your clip, you will select its audio at the same time. Now you might think I would always want to have this on, unless you're doing really detailed things like changing the movement of the audio, placing it somewhere else, you would want to unselect this. But for now, trust me, this will save you a lot of time. The second thing I want to talk about is this magnet over here. Essentially this is called snapping. If I have this deselected, I can do really detailed things. With my blade. I can cut right behind the red cursor. This is called the red cursor, by the way. And I can cut after it or before or whatever I can do. But as soon as I have this selected, it will snap to the nearest thing. You see, when I get close enough, it'll just cut on the thing instead of cutting before it. And you might think that's not useful, but when you're attaching clips, for example, let's say these two clips were separated, I would select this, bring it close, and it'll just attach it to whatever is near it. And that's very useful when you're doing like tiny different cuts and things. Next thing that's gonna help you a lot is this tool right here. This zooms into your timeline or zooms out. It's as simple as that, and it's useful for detailed things. For example, if I was just generally cutting this whenever I wanted to, I wouldn't want to have it zoomed in. But when I want to cut like a specific part of this audio, I'll zoom in all the way to see like the different waves, and then I'll cut out the part that I don't need. Hopefully that explains the tools. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put this right here, and I'm actually gonna remove the audio just so that it doesn't interfere with the recording's audio. Here's a useful shortcut that you need to learn: backspace. Backspace will delete things. I know you could just right click it and go to delete, but it's just way more useful to use backspace, and it's just faster. Now let's just say I want to delete this clip behind here, and I select it and I press backspace. But now I just have this massive empty like area. I don't want that, right? So what I'll do is I'll basically select this clip and I'll click delete on your keyboard. If you have a keyboard that's 10 keyless or with a number pad, it's gonna have this keypad on it. However, if you have a 60% keyboard, that probably doesn't have it. But let's just take a look at it. As you can see, if you can see your backspace button, just go to the right and you could see insert, delete, home, and you want to press that delete button right there. What that'll do is something called ripple delete. Essentially that deletes the clip and brings the clips after it back to its original position. That way you don't have to deal with uncutted mess like these, and then you have to like physically drag the clips. That's a lot of time being wasted. As a matter of fact, you could just do this, press delete, and bippity boppity is finished. You understand the fundamental basics of Davinci Resolve. However, we're gonna go over them one more time just so that you don't forget them, because now we have a clip in it. I can use different examples. As you can see, this is our playback window, and we can see our clip and what's happening over here. This is a red cursor. I didn't talk about this, didn't I? Well, basically it's used to like move around the timeline, and whenever you press play, that's what plays it, and then it just demonstrates it up here. On the right over here we have our inspector tab, which I didn't explain what it does to the clips, but it's just gonna show you detail. In the next episode we're gonna go really in depth into that. On the left over here we have our media pool. It shows our timeline, which is this. It's basically our project, and then it has our clips in here. At the bottom over here we have everything that we can think of. We could just think of this right now as a mysterious box. And then the timeline over here explains everything that's happening in the edit. This displays your video, and in case we had an audio over here, it would display audio. But I remove the audio just so it doesn't interfere with our edit. You can use your scroll wheel, by the way, to zoom into this and zoom out, and you could just hold down middle mouse button to move it around. So hopefully that's helpful. Now you might have seen me undo a bunch of things in this video, and this is where we start talking about shortcuts, because shortcuts are the life savior. If you don't know what I mean, get ready to be astonished if I say so myself. The entire purpose of shortcuts is just to save you time on an edit, and I'm gonna go over some of the basic ones. Over here we've got backspace is used for deleting. The delete key is used for ripple deleting. Control Z is used to undo something. Control C is used to copy something. Control V is used to paste something. So let's say I selected the clip right here and I press Control C, and then I moved over to here and I press Control V. That's gonna copy the clip on there. One quick tip I have to mention before we go on is you're gonna have to save a lot. Control S is your favorite bad boy. Like, you need to Control S every 5 to 10 minutes at least. The sad truth is Davinci Resolve crashes a lot. So Control S, it's gonna be your life savior, my guy. Anyway, just make sure to Control this. I'm stressing this a lot. This is gonna save you. Davinci Resolve is gonna crash. It's inevitable, but you could save your progress. Control S. Just hear me out. Control S is your best friend. Now this is the perfect opportunity to explain what I was talking about in layers over here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this clip over here, and I'm gonna drag it up because I've got to explain something. If I put this clip on top of our clip over here, this one will display. And as you can see, when I remove it, there's the bottom clip over here, and this is the top one. That should explain what I was talking about in layers, but again, here's a simple mistake that a lot of people do, is they place the clip inside the timeline. You probably shouldn't do that, because whenever you want to use the rest of the timeline, remove this clip, it's all gone now. However, Control Z is here to save the day, and as you can see, we just Control Z. There we go. We're gonna go over rendering, even though we just barely learned anything. But we're gonna go over rendering real quick, so that you know it from the beginning, and hopefully you could use it in the future. So one thing that I really forgot to explain in this video, and god, I'm retarded for not doing that, is explaining all of these tabs down here. They all have different purposes. Let's start with this first one. This is the media tab. Nobody cares about this. Essentially, this tab is used to like place media and shit, but we could just do it in the media pool. Who needs that? Our second tab over here is apparently called the cutting tab. Nobody used this. In my 3 years of experience, I have never touched any of those tabs. The one tab that you're going to be spending 99% of your time in is this. And this tab essentially has everything for you. This is called the edit tab. Essentially, it's going to display everything that you need to edit and cut and remove and move around your video. So this is where you create the video. And then our final tab over here is the render tab. Now you might be asking why I just skipped over these three. This is the tab that's used to customize, like, to really go in depth and change different audio. This tab over here is used for color grading, which I will cover in an upcoming episode. And this tab, oh goodness, this tab is horrible. This is where you animate everything. We're not gonna talk about this. Don't worry about this. As a matter of fact, we'll cover this in a future episode, and it's gonna be extremely fun. God, just don't worry about that for now. I just gotta talk about rendering real quick. Rendering, it's super simple in Davinci Resolve. There's multiple different presets for whatever you need to render your video for. I usually use the YouTube preset. You give your file name a name, you put the specific location here. Now, one thing that a lot of people keep mistaking, and that's why their edits end up being super low quality, is this setting right here. Format should not be QuickTime. You should select this and set it to MP4, that way the render is fast. Now all you do is you just leave these settings as they are. Data binding should be same as project, audio codec AAC, and the audio should be main 1, which just combines all the audio together. The video codec should be H.264, but if you have any others, you could select those. And the resolution should be our clip's resolution, which is 1920 by 1080. Now the render setting over here must be entire timeline. The in and out range is essentially 2 ranges that Davinci sets, where you could like change their location and render different places, but we just gotta set it to the entire timeline. And then all you do is you press this tiny button over here, add to render queue. You save it somewhere and it'll appear up here, and then you just press start render and it should do the job. Oh my goodness, I've been recording for so long. Anyway, that's it for this episode. I hope you started learning the basics, and I hope you're excited to learn editing, because I sure as hell am. I'm gonna try my best to put out these episodes once a week. However, school is probably gonna just stop me from doing that. But anyway, this was episode 1 of the complete beginner's guide into editing, and today we covered everything you need to know before editing and the complete basic UI. And look at you started off this episode having no idea what to do, and then look at this. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. You have no idea how much it means to me. And by the way, we're almost at 60 subs, so if you're new to the channel, I'm trying to put out as much high-end content as I possibly could. So feel free to click that lonely ass red button at the bottom over there, or don't, it's up to you. And I'm not trying to plug myself here too much, but liking this video will publish it to other people, and it will help my channel a lot. So if you could just do that, take 3 seconds out of your day, just press that like button. It would mean a lot to me. But anyway, without further ado, thank you so much for watching. I'm not gonna waste any more of your time, and I hope to see you next time. Feel free to check out the other videos that are gonna be recommended at the end of this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.